Hello students, hello everybody. This is a class for language 2, second A, second B, and second C. The 3 second years are included in this explanation about the language points of unit number 1, Speak Out Upper Intermediate. By the way, you can download the book in the Edmodo platform because there you've got the link. So this is something that you already know, but I would like to refresh some contents because it is included in unit number 1, which is the present perfect simple. Here you've got the uses of the present perfect simple. For example, actions that started in the past and continue in the present when we use for or since. Unfinished actions, for example, with yet. Life experiences with ever or never. Recent completed actions with just and already. For example, if I say I have taught English for 30 years, remember that this is an action that started in the past and continue in the present. It means that I started teaching English 30 years ago and I still teach English. Remember that if we take into account an irregular verb, what we are going to use is the past participle, that is to say the third column of the verb. Or this one, quarantine hasn't finished yet, for example. It is unfortunately an action that has not finished yet and we are still at home. Or life experiences. Have you ever broken your leg? Or my mother has never flown in a helicopter. As you can see, you are going to use always the verb in the past participle. Or a recent completed action. I have just eaten breakfast. I don't want to see that movie, or she doesn't want to watch that movie because she has already seen Frozen 2 many times. Okay, so it is an action that has already been completed. And remember that the structure is this one in the affirmative, in the negative, in the interrogative. It is something that you have to remember, that we always in affirmative, negative, and interrogative sentences, we always have to use the verb in the past participle, no matter if the sentence is affirmative, negative, or interrogative. And with these adverbs, you are going to recognize the present perfect. For, since, and yet generally are used at the end of the sentence, while just, already, never, and never are used between the auxiliary verb have or has and the past participle. For example, here you can see it clearly. Have you ever broken? My mother has never flown. She has already seen. I have just eaten. While if I were with for, I say I have taught English for 30 years, or quarantine hasn't finished yet at the end of the sentence. This is something connected with verb tenses that is included, as I told you before, in unit number 1. Another point to take into account in this unit is direct and indirect questions. Well, there is a kind of register included in the differentiation of direct and indirect questions. For example, direct questions are normal questions that you can ask friends, family members, or people you know well. They follow the QUASN model, that is to say, question, word, auxiliary, here the subject, and the main verb. The indirect questions are more formal. They are asked to people we don't know well, or in professional situations, and they have a different form. For example, which are the phrases? Some of these phrases are also polite requests. Could you tell me? Do you know? I was wondering if. Do you have any idea? I'd like to know. Would it be possible? Would there be any chance of? Do you mind if? Or do you mind plus gerund? Or would you mind is even more formal. I'd be grateful. So these are phrases to use in indirect questions. As you can see, this one, I would be grateful. Would you mind? Would there be? Would it be possible? I'd like to know are even polite requests. As for example, this one, could you tell me? Let's see the structure and the difference between direct and indirect questions. With WH questions, Where is Market Street? Obviously, it is a direct question. But if you are lost and you want to ask someone who is standing on the corner and you don't know, maybe you would like to introduce the question. If you introduce the question with the phrase, it is an indirect question. Could you tell me where Market Street is? As you can see the difference. Look at this. Where is and where Market Street is. So the form changes. When we use an indirect question, the form follows an affirmative structure. Or why did you move to Salta? This is in the past. So I was wondering why you moved to Salta. As you can see, we have the question word, the subject, and the verb in the same tense of the question. And the yes-no questions, uses if or whether. For example, look at this direct question. Does Tom like pizza? Indirect question. Do you know if Tom likes pizza? Affirmatives. The form is the form of an affirmative sentence. Or whether is more formal even. I would like to know whether you prefer oral or written exams. So, whenever you introduce a question with a phrase, it is an indirect question. And when you use indirect question, the structure is of an affirmative sentence. We also have polite requests. As I told you, they are form of indirect questions. For example, would there be any chance of using mobile phones in class? As you can see, we are going to use, in this case, after of, which is a preposition, a gerund. Would there be any chance of using mobile phones in the class? So when we use indirect questions, the form changes into an affirmative after the question word, or in the case of yes-no question, after the conjunction if or whether. This is the difference between direct or direct, as you wish to pronounce, both are possible, and indirect question. Thank you very much. See you next class.